What are the root causes of so many of us being in so much pain? Sometimes it is because your heart is broken because a lover hurt you or a partner hurt you. Sometimes it's because you feel like no one understands you, that you're wandering around an island because no one gets what you're going through. No one understands your pain. No one sees your pain, and no one certainly tries to help you with your pain. Hello and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg. On the show, I interview peak performing innovators in the creative, social impact, and earth conservation spaces. I also bring you ideas and techniques that you can grab and use to set goals, create, and unlock your potential for changing yourself and the world. And now let's get to the show. Hello, and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Today, I want to talk about something that is going to be challenging, and I want to put that out there right now, right away, that this is a potentially sensitive and a potentially triggering topic, and I want you to know that right now because I recently had a death in the family, and it was a death by suicide. And so if this triggers you, if you are having those kinds of thoughts, I want you to know that they've set up a new and comprehensive suicide and crisis lifeline. If you are having feelings like this, please, please, please get in touch with them. And the number is 988. It's going to be designed to help those of us who need those kinds of that kind of help get that kind of help. So please know that if you need to talk to someone because you're having those kinds of feelings or thoughts, the suicide lifeline is going to be really, really helpful to you. But I want to talk about something that is almost adjacent to it, but it's important. And it's about how much pain we're all in. There's so, honestly, I'm going to be very honest and very raw here. I don't know anybody who isn't suffering through some kind of pain, whether it's physical because of the way your body is, or emotional or mental because of being injured or hurt in that way and traumatized in that way. A lot of us are going through really hard times. The pandemic, of course, the economy going all over the place, Roe v. Wade being overturned, tensions running high all over the world. And we have no patience. We have no, most of us anyway, don't have patience. We don't have patience. We're very reactionary. And this is not just, I'm not talking about any one group. I'm saying that as a whole, I seem to notice that there's a lack of civility, that there's a lack of understanding, a lack of empathy, a lack of seeing things from the other person's point of view, and an interest in learning their point of view, or an interest in seeing what they're thinking and what is making them do what they're doing, because we tend to go, you suck, first, and ask questions later, if we ask questions at all. So this is not a condemnation of anyone or anything. I'm just noticing that this is happening, and we have to think about what is the cause. What are the root causes of so many of us being in so much pain? Sometimes it is because your heart is broken because a lover hurt you or a partner hurt you. Sometimes it's because you feel like no one understands you, that you're wandering around an island because no one gets what you're going through. No one understands your pain. No one sees your pain, and no one certainly tries to help you with your pain, right? And there are a lot of us in this way. There are a lot of us wandering around day in and day out in pain. So the question that I always come to when I see things like this, because I'm a fixer personality, is, well, what can we do about it? What can we do about the fact that people, so many people, are in pain? And here's the thing. In developing parts of the world, it's a different level of pain or perhaps anxiety, because they're, in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the needs are food and shelter and, might be touch, might be companionship, whatever. Food, clothing, and shelter are the big things that if you are in the developing world, food, clean water, clothing, and shelter become very important, because sometimes those resources are incredibly scarce. So it's a different plane. And this is not to say that people in those kinds of really challenging situations aren't feeling pain. It's that it's a different quality of pain. It's a different level, a different character of pain. And I'm talking about this, and as I'm talking about it, I again want to figure out, well, what do we do? Well, one of the first things that I think of to do is to breathe. I know, this is my solution to so much, but it's actually true. I mean, they've done so many studies that if you breathe when you're in pain, that sometimes the breath can help alleviate that pain. Certainly, they do that with pregnancy and birth. A woman is giving birth, and that's about the most painful thing you can possibly imagine. And what do? They tell her to do certain kind of breathing, because if she does that certain kind of breathing, it will alleviate some of the acute pain that she is experiencing, and it will help her focus on something else. And that's what breath does. Breath, especially during challenging times, helps you focus on something that isn't the direct challenge. And yes, there's fight or flight, and you might need to focus on the direct challenge, but if you are in pain, whether or not it's from physical, again, injury or illness or disease or something like that, one of the best things that you can do for yourself is meditate. You know, I'm a big proponent of that, but also breathe. You don't have to sit in cross-legged pose and go, Om. You don't have to do that. Meditation does not have to be rarefied air. It does not have to be only something gurus do. Not at all. Meditation can be as simple as taking conscious breaths. And literally, if you take a conscious breath right now, in fact, try it with me. I want you to inhale for a count of 4. Are you ready? Inhale, 2, 3, 4, and then exhale, 2, 3, 4. And try it again. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, and then exhale, 2, 3, 4. And why not? One more time. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, and then exhale, 2, 3, 4. And here's the thing. I would be willing to bet, I didn't ask you to assess how you were doing before you started this, but I'm willing to bet that if you had taken a little assessment of how am I doing right now, before you took those breaths, and then did the same kind of assessment after you took those breaths, I'm willing to bet you would have had a noticeable difference, because that's what breathing does. And you've heard me say this before, but I'm going to say it again. We can last 3 weeks without food. We can last about 3 days without water. We can last about 3 minutes without air. Think about it. Think about how important the breath is. If you don't have it for longer than 3 minutes, if you have no air, that's a problem. And I know I started this all by talking about something as serious and grave as taking your own life. And I get that. There are people committing suicide every day. And I'm here to tell you that sometimes you can circumvent that feeling, those ideas, by just breathing, by just giving yourself a moment to take a few breaths consciously and fully. And that is meditation. That is mindfulness, when you slow down and you get into that space of just breathing for a minute. It doesn't have to be long to open you back up from the clenched part of yourself. That's what this is, by the way, this reactionary thing. Imagine it like a clenched fist. Really, that's what's going on. When you're being reactive, when you're going, I'm going to do something about it, it's like you're ready to fight, and that's clenched fist. And what breathing allows you to do is unclench those fists, metaphorically and sometimes even literally, if you take a moment. You've heard me say this before too, but the difference between reaction and response, right? The difference between reacting and responding is the number of breaths you take between what happens and what you do about it. So think about that. If you take no breaths, you're going to react. Boom. That's an instinctive, let's go get something done. And that sometimes might be the thing. Like if you see a kitten about to get run over by a car, you wouldn't stop and breathe. You'd make sure that the car stops so that you can save the kitten. That's a different thing. But if it's something has happened to you and you feel hurt by it or you feel in pain from it, taking a minute and breathing will allow you to alleviate a lot of that immediate clenched fist anguish. It will allow you to feel just a ton better. So that's one of the things that you can do in that moment when you're in pain. And another thing that you can do is reach out, right? You can reach out for help. If you have a trusted friend and you're feeling in pain, chances are they're at least in some pain too. And you might be able to help each other through. You might be able to lift each other up. So asking someone and saying, hey, I'm having a tough time. Is it okay if I talk with you about it? And if they hesitate, then they're not the right person. If they say, yeah, absolutely, I want to be there for you, then you found someone who's willing to, if not take on your burden, at least share it with you for a while and perhaps give you some perspective that will help you move on from the pain or resolve the pain. So bear that in mind, reaching out to someone. And you know what's really interesting with the advent of social media is, 15 years old or whatever now. Here's the thing. What's interesting about it is that I have friends that I've only met through social media, that I've never met in real life, and that if I wanted to talk with them, I might be able to reach out and go, hey, I'm having a tough time. Would it be okay if I talked with you? And this past week, I had just all sorts of weirdness go on, and we lost a family member. A family member died, and I needed to let some people know that I was doing business with that I was going to be unavailable. And here's what's interesting about that. I was honest. I'm like, look, we lost my nephew, and I'm not going to be able to do the things that I had said I was going to be able to do because I'm focusing on family this week. And everybody, 201, said, hey, you know what? Take care of family. We're totally willing to wait. And that's it. And you know what? It doesn't have to be something as awful and dire as a death for you to go, hey, you know what? I'm reevaluating what I can do and honestly what I want to do, but what I can do. And I need to redirect. I need to reschedule. I need to reconfigure things. And the reason is because if you do it with notice, that's a very different thing than if you wait until the last minute or you let the deadline go by and then you're going, oh crap, I didn't do it. And then everybody feels at least a little bad. And that's the thing, isn't it? Let's look at that notion of the feeling bad when you miss a deadline or when you're not going to be able to complete a project. That's anxiety and guilt. Oh, such a delight, right? Both of them are such delights, anxiety and guilt. So, and you know what's interesting? A lot of us would rather wait and let the deadlines go by and never finish the project than take our lumps and go, okay, I have to communicate with this person and let me just tell them what I can do and what I can't do, and we need to renegotiate or we need to reconfigure things because this isn't working. And we would rather put it off and procrastinate because our anxiety makes it so much worse in our heads than go, hey, you know what? It turns out that my life has changed. My work has changed. This has changed. I won't be able to do this in a timely manner. I need to reconfigure or I need to let the project go. We'd rather wait until after deadlines have passed instead of saying the stuff right there, instead of going, hey, I can't do this, because we don't want to look bad. But guess what? You look a lot worse if you let the deadline pass. If you don't communicate, if you don't say what needs to be said, you look worse. So one of the ways to beat some of this so that you're not feeling like the entire world is resting on your shoulders is get proactive. Start talking about things way earlier than you are. Start communicating. Start opening up. And I get that it's scary, by the way. I understand that it's scary to open up, to admit that you have a flaw, to admit that you might not be able to do what you said you were going to do, to admit that you're vulnerable. I understand that that is crappy. I get it. And ultimately, it's also honest and authentic, right? And if you are working with people who, when you say to them, hey, this is what's going on with me, and they go, well, blah, 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 at you, then get out of there immediately as soon as you can. These are not people you want to be working with. If you are vulnerable around these people and they punch down and make you feel like crap for having been vulnerable, then these aren't people you want to be working with anyway. So yes, there's a lot that goes into all of this. If you want to plan better, blah, 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 all of that stuff, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you cannot plan. Things happen. Life happens. Stuff gets in the way. So you want to be able to plan. You want to be able to figure it out, but you can't. So what do? How do we handle this? The best way is to plan better, of course, so that you know your resources, you know your capabilities, and you know what you can and can't do. I get that. Sometimes, though, you're in a situation where you can't do that. Ta-da! You can't plan. Stuff happens. Immediately reach out to the people. If something happens like that, immediately reach out. Immediately let them know, immediately communicate. And that goes for work and personal relationships. One of the reasons so many of us are walking around in pain is we feel no one understands us. Well, if you're going through stuff and you feel like no one understands you, I can virtually guarantee you that other people, the people you'd need to communicate with to let them know that you're in pain, or to let them know that you're not going to be able to make the deadline, or to let them know that you're vulnerable or that you're hurting, I'm willing to bet you that they probably are too, that they've probably missed deadlines, that they've probably messed up, fail often, make marvelous mistakes. That's what I say to all my clients, right? Because here's the thing. If you are willing to be vulnerable with people, with good people, they will understand. And the sooner you do it, the better, right? The sooner you let them know, the better. And when you talk with someone and you are open and honest, if they're on sort of a righteous path, if you will, if they're on a positive path, they will understand and they will want to work with you. That's just how it is. We do for each other. We're a species that works together. If you've read Harari's Sapiens, you will know historically we are a species that works together. That's one of the reasons that we have succeeded so well as a species in propagating this planet. This is not to say that how many of us there are is a good thing. I believe in zero population growth, and you know that. And also for climate change, we're just using up a lot of resources. Boy, this episode's all over the place. And we're still very successful working together. And that's the thing. Nowadays, if you feel isolated, you feel like you can't talk to anyone, you feel like you're alone, the best way to do it is check out some of those other social creatures in your sphere and say, hey, I could really use an ear. Would you be willing to chat with me about some of the stuff that's going on in my life? And see if they will, see if they can, because that's how it goes. That's what we do for ourselves and each other. We can help each other out and be very, very good for each other, especially when we're in pain. Now, if you're in physical pain, my goodness, I hope you have insurance. And also, I have to say that the best way we can deal with one another if we're in physical pain is see what kind of resources you have to help yourself. If you don't have the resources to go to a massage therapist or an acupuncturist or even the doctor, and this is not, I'm not a medical professional, you know that, but what I'm saying is if your body hurts and it hurts enough, go to the doctor, figure out a way to do that, of course. But let's say you've got sore muscles and you're in pain because of that, and it's constant. Like for me, I have constant muscular pain all the time, every day. I'm never not in pain. So I do things to help myself. I do self-massage, and I bought little racket balls and I sort of rub them on my legs to make my legs feel better. And the reason I'm saying all this is because there are things we can do for ourselves to alleviate some of our pain instead of staying in the pain. And I am not blaming the victim here. I'm not saying, well, if you're in pain, it's your own fault. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there are things we can do that because you're in pain, you forget that you can do. And this is not you in person. This is the general you or we. Sometimes when we're in pain, the pain is so big that we forget that there are things that we ourselves can do to alleviate that very pain. How messed up is that, right? The organism forgets that it can do something to help itself. And so here I am telling you, if you're in pain, if you can take a few breaths and see if you can get some perspective on the pain, and then you can respond instead of reacting, and see if there's a way for you to alleviate the pain yourself. And if you can't alleviate it yourself through positive self-talk or massage or whatever it is, whatever the quality of pain is, I don't know what your pain is if it is, then reach out for someone else, reach out for a friend and see if there's someone that you can talk with. And if you are having the kind of pain that needs medical care, then you try very hard to get that medical care wherever you are in the world. Try and get the medical care you need. Find the information. And again, if you are in a situation where you are feeling really awful and even suicidal, please, please, please call the suicide lifeline at 988 and talk to someone there who will be able to help you deal with this in a way that is positive and affirming and will be towards your highest good. I know that I usually close these episodes by saying, I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. This is not an enjoyable episode, and I realize that, but I hope it was useful to you. I hope that you got something out of it. And honestly, if you have insurance and you need someone to talk to, contact a therapist, contact a counselor. People are trained to help you work through this stuff. Contact a coach if you're ready to go, okay, I've dealt with some of my acute pain. Now I'm ready to deal with the long-term pain. Contact a coach, like a life coach or a career coach or a business coach or whatever. You can contact any number of people, depending on what's going on with you. If you need to go to the doctor, find your doctor's name, call and try and make an appointment and see if someone can see you to alleviate this. We're not meant to be in pain. That's something that we really need to remember. We are not meant to be in pain. We are meant to be a mobile, thriving species. And so if you are in pain, let's deal with it so that you remember that you can. Because how weird is it that the organism forgets that it can help itself? It's weird, but it's true. How many times have you gone, oh, I feel like crap, and then you smack yourself on the head and go, wait, I'm thirsty. That's what's going on. Or I'm hungry. Why have I been so low energy? This sucks. Oh yeah, I needed to eat. Just like that, right? Those kinds of things we forget. And the same with other kinds of pain. If you're in pain, there are likely things that you can do about it. I hope that you do. Until next time, this is Isolde Trachtenberg, reminding you to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind to others, but even more importantly, to yourself. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the podcast if you're new, and it would mean the world to me if you told a friend about it. Today's episode was produced by Isolde Trachtenberg and is copyright 2022. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope. Until next time, remember to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind.